But it's Friday, and it's the first hour of our program, so it's time for Brunch with Bernie, our weekly chat and national town hall meeting, really, with the senator from Vermont, Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, welcome.
Great to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you with us. What's on your plate?
Well, it has been a busy week in many respects. I am the ranking member, which is kind of the leader of the opposition, leader of the Democrats, on the Budget Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And this week we voted on a Republican budget, which won, I believe, 51 to 49. And, Tom, this budget is so bad that when I talk about it, people really don't believe me. But it is a budget which so clearly represents the interest of the billionaire class and so clearly represents an attack on working families and the middle class that it is almost beyond comprehension that a major political party could bring it forth. And what I found very disturbing in terms of this whole process, and this is something we've been working on for months, is how little attention this disastrous budget is paid by the media. But let me just briefly go over what this budget does. For a start, just in a rather cavalier manner, it throws 27 million people off of health insurance. How's that?
Whoa.
Nothing
this
serious.
This is the Republican budget.
People off health insurance by ending the Affordable Care Act, so-called Obamacare, and by cutting Medicaid by well over $400 billion. When you end the Affordable Care Act, you're throwing 16 million people off of health insurance, many of whom for the first time have had health insurance, and then you're throwing another 11 off by making massive cuts in Medicaid. When I asked the Republicans what happens to these 27 million people, how many of them die, how many of them become much sicker than they otherwise would, how many of them end up in an emergency room at great cost to the healthcare system, they have no answer. None. That's it. 27 million. We're the only country, the only major country, that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right, and they throw 27 million people off of health care on top of the 35 million we already have who are uninsured. That's it. Now, what do you think?
It's astonishing. This is the Republican budget. Why is it that the media doesn't talk about this?
I'll tell you why. It's a very interesting. There are two reasons why. The budget is not an appropriations bill. The budget is a framework. And the framework will then go to the budget, will go to the Appropriations Committee where real legislation will be developed. And if legislation is very bad, I think it's fair to say that Barack Obama will, in fact, veto legislation which repeals Obamacare. Fair guess, right?
Sure.
All right. So what they're saying, well, this isn't really real. It's not going to be 100% applicable because this is just the framework. And that's true. But on the other hand, this is the framework. This is what the Republican Party, the party that controls the House and the Senate, actually believes. I think we should talk about it. Then, not only that, every listener knows that it is becoming increasingly difficult for young people and families to send kids to college. And many of our young people leave college with deep debts. The Republican solution is to cut $90 billion over a 10-year period in mandatory funding for Pell Grants, Pell Grants being the major source of grants provided by the federal government. Millions of working families will find it harder to send their kids to college as a result. So the solution to the crisis of college affordability, make massive cuts in Pell Grant programs. In terms of nutrition, it is no secret that we have today some 45 million Americans living in poverty, and a number of them are really struggling every single day to figure out how they're going to put food on the table for their kids. Half the kids in our public schools, I believe, are on free or reduced lunch programs. So nutrition is a big issue in this country. And yet what the Republicans did is make massive, massive cuts in food stamp program and the women, infant, and child program. This is a program that provides nutrition for low-income pregnant women and their babies, cut. The Meals on Wheels program, cut for elderly, fragile seniors. I mean, unbelievably cruel. And then on top of cutting health care, education, and nutrition, what the Republicans also do is they decide that one of the great tax problems in our country is that at a time when we have massive levels of income and wealth inequality, what they believe is that the top 0.2%, not 1%, top 0.2% of 1% of the richest families in America deserve over a 10-year period a $269 billion break in their taxes. Got that? That's by repealing the estate tax. The estate tax only applies to the top 0.2% of 1%. They repeal it. $269 billion goes to the wealthiest 5,500 families in America. That's it. Now, to add insult to injury, what they also do, after giving huge tax breaks to billionaire families, they then come back and say, we are going to allow to expire the increased benefits we put into the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit for low-income and working families. Those increased benefits will expire, meaning lower income and working families will pay more in taxes. So, if you were to sit down and write a budget that reflects the greed of the billionaire class, more tax breaks for billionaires, savage cuts to virtually every program that working families need, this is the budget that you would write. Mm-hmm. And I think, if the American people knew what was in this budget, knew what the Republicans stood for, I honestly believe they would have a hard time getting 15, 20% of the vote. But that was the reality. So that's one issue that we have been working on really hard. And what I will be doing, along with a number of other progressive senators, is to make sure that these ideas are not translated into legislation. And to the degree that they are, we've got to make sure that the president vetoes that legislation. A lot of other issues going on. The president, I believe, today is going to be in Oregon with Nike officials. Right. And he's going to use that stage as an opportunity to push for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I believe that the Trans-Pacific Partnership is a disastrous trade agreement based on a number of other disastrous trade agreements. Tom, when we try to understand why it is that despite a huge increase in technology and productivity, the middle class of this country has been disappearing for 40 years. 40 years. If we try to understand why it is that people are working 2 or 3 jobs, working 50, 60 hours a week, why median family income today is almost $5,000 less than it was in 1999. There are a lot of reasons out there. And income and wealth inequality, the fact that there has been a huge transfer of wealth, I'm talking about many trillions of dollars from the middle class to the top 0.1%, is one of the reasons. And part of that reason has to do with our disastrous trade policies. Yep. Okay, you and I have talked about this for years, and that is NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China. And now what this trade agreement, TPP, is building on is essentially the ideology of past disastrous trade agreements. So right now, as part of this TPP, if it were to be passed, and I'll do everything I can to see that it is not passed, you're going to have American workers being forced to compete against workers in Vietnam with minimum wages, I believe 56 cents an hour. They're going to be competing against workers in Malaysia where they literally have forced labor. And that's something we must not allow it happen.
Agreed. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie, our national town hall meeting with Senator Sanders. Your opportunity to speak with him. We'll be right back with your calls for Bernie. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Be sure to check out Senator Sanders' website. It's sanders.senate.gov. He's also got a fairly prominent presence over on Facebook and Twitter. Welcome back, Senator. Pick up some calls now.
Let's do it.
Okay, Tom in St. Paul, Minnesota. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Okay, hi. Senator Sanders, great to speak with you. I wanted to ask you a question and get your take. And the question's regarding messaging, packaging, and framing the debate. I saw you on George Stephanopoulos' show, And of course, the corporate media immediately is trying to tag you with the awful word socialist, because Americans, they understand the ignorance of the American public. They don't understand that word. And I'd like to get your take on what you can do to change this into being an American message.
Good.
And what I want to say to you is, when they ask you, Bernie, are you a socialist? What you can do is say, well, they called FDR a socialist, and his New Deal progressive policies rescued us from the Republican Great Depression, and he's now ranked next to Lincoln as one of our greatest American presidents. And then you could say, I'm an FDR liberal, and if that means I'm a socialist, and I stand proudly next to one of our great American leaders, FDR. Next question, Mr. Stephanopoulos.
Well, Tom, let me take it a bit further. And I didn't think that Stephanopoulos was attempting to be unfair. Because if people say, are you a democratic socialist? I say, yes, I do. And then the question is, and I happen to think FDR, as you've indicated, Tom, was a very great American president who led this country out of the worst depression that we've ever had, with a whole lot of innovative programs that are still in existence, and many of which our Republican friends want to repeal today. But also, we have to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be a democratic socialist? What is that about? And what I do is look at countries around the world, often countries like Denmark, Norway, Finland, Scandinavia, Germany occasionally. And what I say is, look, the United States and our country, we do a lot of very good things. But you got to be really dumb not to look around the world to take advantage of what other countries do better than we do. Other countries should look to us to see what we do well. And when I look at social democratic countries which have had labor governments, social democratic governments, democratic socialist governments, this is what I see. I see in every major country on earth, not just Scandinavia, healthcare is a right of all people. That's no longer a debate. The conservative parties in Denmark and Sweden, no one argues that healthcare is a right. All people have healthcare. And it turns out that in virtually all other countries, their healthcare system is not just universal, it is much more cost-effective than our system, whose primary function is to enable the private insurance companies and the drug companies to make enormous profits. So you want to call me a democratic socialist because I believe that healthcare is a right and that it is absurd for the United States of America to be spending almost double what any other country on earth spends per person. Fine, call me a socialist. I accept it. Next issue. What is more fundamental and important for a nation than education? Education is what we do as human beings. Hopefully all of us try to learn and learn until the day that we die. It's part of what being human is about. We'll continue that discussion after the break.
Okay, great. We'll be right back. It's 20 minutes past the hour. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here with Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls. Stick around. Welcome back. 20 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. Senator Sanders, Tom from Minnesota just called and suggested that when asked about being a democratic socialist, instead of invoking Sweden, perhaps you should invoke FDR. You were talking about
this.
I
think, I happen to think that FDR was one of the great presidents of our country, but I also think that it is absolutely imperative that we look around the world and we see what other countries do better than we did. And I was mentioning that in terms of healthcare, we have essentially a dysfunctional system. We're the only major country on earth without a national healthcare system. But it's not just healthcare as a right. You look at education in a highly competitive global economy. The idea that the United States is slipping further and further behind other countries in terms of the percentage of our people who have college degrees is absurd, is wrong. So if you look at countries like Germany and, again, Scandinavia, Austria, other countries, Tom, do you know how much they charge for tuition in their public colleges and universities?
I know in Denmark they actually pay you to go to college. We had a caller from Denmark last week, and he said he got $900 a month.
Right. I mean, so the point is this good public policy? Well, you know what? In America today, you have large numbers of lower income and working class families where their young people are bright, they're eager, they want to go to college, but they are saying, I'm not going to go to college and come out $50,000, $80,000 in debt. Not going to do it. So we lose all of the intellectual potential of those young people in a highly competitive global economy where we need the best educated workforce. Does that make any sense? I don't think so. So yes, if democratic socialism means that every person in this country should be able to get a higher education regardless of the income of their family, yeah, I'm a democratic socialist. I think it makes a lot more sense to be investing in our young people, or all working people, by the way, so they can get the education they need rather than giving tax breaks to billionaires. People want to criticize me for that? Go for it. That's fine. I accept it. That's what I believe. I believe that it is totally crazy when every psychologist in this world understands that the most formative years of a human being's life are 0 to 4. And yet today in this country, where we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country, working class parents all over America finding it almost impossible to acquire good quality, affordable child care. So again, call me a democratic socialist. I believe that all of our young people deserve high quality child care, that we need to pay child care workers a living wage, that they need to have the education and the training that should be requisite in order to take care of the young kids, the very youngest kids in this country. That's a crime, fine. It's a crime. That's what I believe. Call that democratic socialism.
Okay. Let's pick up some calls here. Nina in Tuscola, Illinois. I'm sorry. Nina, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator. My question is, would you consider publishing your positions in a pamphlet and calling it Common Sense?
It's a great idea.
Common Sense after Tom Paine?
Yeah.
I like it, Nina. I like that. The answer is yes. We are, our campaign has just begun, and we've been a little bit overwhelmed for the last week. I think we have 200,000 people who have indicated that they want to be part of the campaign, and 80,000 people have contributed on BernieSanders.com, and our phones are bouncing off the hook. So we haven't really published anything, but I like that idea. I like that idea a lot, and maybe that should be the title of it. The views that I have are not complicated. They're pretty sensible. I think they're commonsensical, so common sense is not a bad idea for it, and I think they have the support of a whole lot of people. Nina, I like that idea very much. Thanks.
Erica in Long Beach, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. I'm from Long Beach, California. I'm wondering, I'm a younger generation. I'm a young voter. I'm in my early 20s. And I think it's interesting how you seem to have garnered a lot of support from my generation, especially on websites such as like Reddit and stuff, where like Reddit.r/Sanders for President, like so many subscribers were trying to get interest for you. And I think it's very special that you seem to have like this, just something about you that we want, like as a young generation, like the passionate people that we want. And since it's so rare, I think in this generation now to have such young people voting, how are you going to try to get more interest? Like, are you trying to outreach to like the internet more? I mean, I heard about this through Twitter, and I'm watching you on YouTube right now. Like, are you pushing for a lot more internet coverage, I think?
Absolutely, Erica. We are investing very heavily in the campaign. We are working with a group called Revolution, who were the folks who initiated a lot of President Obama's efforts in 2008. They're kind of cutting edge. So we're going to be all over social media. And once we get geared up, and it'll take us a few more weeks to do that, we're going to be producing stuff every single day, not only just about me and the campaign, but some of the important things that are going on in America. So social media and reaching out to young people is very important. On Monday night, I'm going to be, I believe, in the University of Virginia campus talking about the high cost of college education. But it's not just college young people. We have a 17% unemployment rate today for young people in general, and that is obviously much too high, and we've got to figure out how we tap the intellect and the energy of young people to help transform America. So short answer is, Erica, yes, absolutely. We are going to be reaching out and trying to involve as many young people as we can in the campaign.
Jason in Costa Mesa, California. We just have a minute to the break. A real quick question, Jason, please.
I just want to make a point about I'm a progressive and a liberal, but I'm not a Democrat. And I think it's really important that if you have a chance in the primary that you urge people like me to re-register as Democrats so we can have an opportunity to take back the Democratic Party.
Okay. Thanks very much, Jason. Good point.
Thoughts on that, Senator?
Well, I am running. One of the issues that I had to deal with is, do I run as within the Democratic primary process or have gone outside of it? And I've decided to run in it. And if we're going to do well, people are going to have to be able to vote in those primaries, participate in the caucuses, and they're going to have to do that within the structure of the Democratic Party. So Jason is absolutely right.
Yeah, so particularly in those closed primary states, It becomes quite critical. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders after this. Be sure to check out Bernie's website at sanders.senate.gov. It's 28 minutes past the hour. Welcome back, Thom Hartmann here with you. And Senator Sanders back on the line with us. Senator?
I am right here.
Okay, great. Let's see. Next call, Paul in Woodinville, Washington. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Tom.
Hello, Paul.
Bernie, I'm 55 years old. I taught high school math and science until I lost my eyesight to a disease which I was born with, and I am now about 95% blind. But I live on Social Security disability, which the United States House of Representatives has made taken the unconscionable action of holding hostage as of the first day of this legislative session. My question is, what are you going to tell the American people about Social Security and Social Security disability? But before you answer, I want to say this, that even though I live on less than $1,100 a month, I found $25 this week to join Team Bernie Sanders and contribute to the campaign. And I'm asking everybody that's listening right now to go to BernieSanders.com and either at least match my $25 contribution. Can you tell us what you're going to say about Social Security briefly?
Well, Paul, let me just start off by telling you, when I hear you say what you just said, it moves me very much. It really does. And thank you very much. First thought, in terms of what the Republicans are doing, what the Republicans are trying to do is create a phony crisis in the disability insurance program, which is part of Social Security. And what they are saying is, well, Social Security, the disability program, in a few years is going to go broke, and there will be, I believe, a 19%, will have to reduce benefits by something like 19%. And the only way that the Republicans can think of to not reduce benefits for the disabled by 19% is making cuts in other aspects of Social Security, i.e. the retirement program, all of which is total and absolute nonsense. What you have is two separate programs which operate under the same roof. And what has happened time after time after time is when one of the programs, in this case the disability program, is running short on money, we transfer money from the retirement program. Sometimes when the retirement program was running low on money, we transferred money from the disability program. That's all that has to happen. That's what the president wants, and that is what I want. And that's what we're going to make to happen. The idea of either cutting disability benefits for somebody like Paul, who's just hanging on now financially, is totally unconscionable, is beyond belief. And the idea of making cuts for the retirement program when we have millions of other seniors in exactly the same position as Paul, who are older, is also unconscionable. So we have introduced legislation that would expand Social Security benefits by lifting the cap on taxable income, which is now at $118,000. So, Paul, this is an issue we are going to work very, very, very hard on. I will do everything to make sure there are not going to be cuts in the disability program or in Social Security in general. In fact, at a time when so many of the disabled and seniors are struggling. We need to expand benefits, not cut them. But thanks so much for your thoughts and your support.
Patrick in Jacksonville, North Carolina. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Senator. Just want to first say your campaign announcement literally brought me to tears, so I appreciate you getting involved and getting in the ring. Number two, and I think this is a number of people have brought this up in the social media circles that I've been tracking, there's not many places where anyone can really attack your record as a liberal progressive. The one place that I've seen people consistently come at you has been on gun control. I don't disagree with your history, so I don't want it to feel like I'm trying to bind you up. How would you choose, for those of us trying to support your campaign, to couch your record with regard to preventing litigation against firearms manufacturers and dealers?
Well, what we're going to do, what's going on now is our opponents are trying to dig into my record, and that's fair enough, and look at every vote that I cast. And again, Patrick, let me tell you, we just announced last week, and as I said on this program many times previously, I honestly wasn't sure if I was going to run or not. We made the decision. We've got a lot of homework to do to go over every vote that we cast. But let me just say, in general, on guns, I come from a very rural state. In the state of Vermont, we have almost no gun control at all, and that's kind of what the majority of the people of our state feel comfortable with. In Vermont and other very rural states, what guns are about are hunting, guns are about target shooting, a lot of antique gun collectors, and in fact, we have a pretty low, thank God, crime rate here in the state of Vermont. But obviously, the rest of the country, whether it's Baltimore, Los Angeles, New York City, whatever, guns, are associated with drug dealers and killers and everything else. So looking at it in a national perspective is different than looking at it in a Vermont perspective. I should tell you, Patrick, that to the best of my knowledge, and I'm quite sure I'm right on this, what my critics about guns don't tell you is that I have an F NRA voting record. So the idea that I am some kind of gun nut and blah, 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 blah is just not true. Again, I have an F rating from the NRA because I have voted for a number of things that they don't like. But we are going to examine our gun record, and this is an important issue. Everybody in this country is shocked beyond belief in terms of what happened at Sandy Hook in Connecticut and what's happened, the disasters that we've seen. And I think there is widespread belief that we need sensible gun control. And we will kind of work out what exactly that means. But you raise a very fair question. But don't let anyone tell you that I'm some kind of a gun nut when I got an F voting record from the NRA. But you're right. My record deserves discussion, and we'll have a position about where we go from here in terms of our views on this important issue.
Maxine in Louisville, Colorado. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
It's Louisville here in Colorado.
Oh.
We pronounce the S.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Sanders, I am so thrilled that you're running, and my 9-year-old daughter is also thrilled, and she's ready to go campaign for you. And I think Colorado is a great place for you because there's such a large percentage of independents here. I think there's a great opportunity. My question really is about Obamacare, and I'm wondering if and when you get elected president, if you would consider really updating Obamacare. One of the real issues is for those of us who are self-employed, because we have to figure out how much money we're going to make more than a year in advance of when we make that money, and then figure out what kind of subsidy we're eligible for. It would make a lot more sense for self-employed people to base it on last year's taxes instead of next year's, when we have no idea what next year's taxes are going to be like.
Right. Very good point, Maxine. I mean, it's very hard for somebody who's self-employed or from, many people in the business world to be able to predict what they're going to make next year. So I think that's an absolutely valid point. I think in terms of Obamacare, I voted for it for a number of reasons. But let me be very clear. I think we've got to go a lot further in terms of health care. I happen to believe in a Medicare for all single-payer system, not only because it will be universal and not only because it will be more cost-effective, it will be less complicated. Obamacare is a very, very complicated health care system. I believe in simple. And Maxine, you point out one of the problems of it. Thank you.
Alex in Minooka, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Let me first say that I am glad that you're running. I've been a huge fan of yours since high school. So I'm a college student right now, and I'm wondering, obviously the education system has some flaws, especially student debt. And my question is, what would you do to help students who have, student debt and things like that? Because even me, who goes to community college and I work, I still can't even afford to go to school part-time.
Alex, thanks so much for your question. And, Tom, one of the things that I love about your show and what you do very, very well is I think there are a whole lot of, just middle-class, working-class people who listen and are prepared to volunteer and talk about the realities of their life.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the show so good. It's not some kind of abstract, discussion about great ideas. It's talking about the real lives of real people. All right, so Alex tells us he goes to community college. He's worried about student debt. What are we going to do about it? Student debt in this country is now, if my memory is correct, about $1.2 trillion. Does that sound right, Tom?
That is right, yes.
Yeah. And growing every day. The legislation that we are going to be offering, which will focus on making tuition free for public colleges and universities, also will deal with student debt. And we deal with it, again, we're still working on all of the details in two basic ways. What Obama did was correct, which is to take away a lot of student lending from the banks where they were making a fortune and give it over to the federal government. Profits are now coming into the federal government. I'd rather see that than going into the banks. But, frankly, I do not believe that the federal government should be making profits off of people like Alex and millions of others. If people are borrowing money to go to college, by definition, they don't have a lot of money. And I don't think the federal government should be profiting off of them. So if you take away the profit margin, you can lower student interest rates in a significant way. And the other way is to, right now, make sure that interest rates are a lot lower, closer to what the Fed interest rates are, and lower to what auto interest rates are and mortgage rates rather than where they are right now. So a number of ways we can lower student interest rates.
We'll be right back with more Senator Sanders.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
And check out sanders.senate.gov for Bernie's web. It's Bernie's website, a great news source. You can sign up for his newsletter, the Bernie Buzz there, all kinds of cool stuff. Welcome back. Steve in Phoenix, Arizona. You're watching Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Happy birthday, Tom, and also thank you, Senator Sanders, for fighting these dastardly Social Security disability cuts. It's unconscionable. And my question is here's this. Anyone who's receiving Social Security in any form, if their income is over $44,000, and this includes pension, stocks, interest, whatever it may be, and you're filing jointly, and that could include a still working spouse, their Social Security benefits are taxed at 85%. And this apparently was put in by Reagan in 1983. And can this be abolished, or at least the threshold be raised to $100,000 or more? And this would help solidify the middle class. Republicans are always seeming to be about tax cuts, and this is something that would help the middle class. But I don't know if they'd support it. I'm sure they wouldn't. But anyways, thank you, Senator. I appreciate you running for president. I'm doing a donation to you, and I'll take your question or your answer off the air. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Good point. And I think, it is time that we took a hard look at all aspects of Social Security, including the taxes paid by Social Security beneficiaries and how much they're paying. So the answer to your question is yes. What I have been simply focusing right now on as the founder of the Defending Social Security Caucus is, A, do everything that we can to prevent any cuts from Social Security. And that's been a struggle we've gone on for years. I think we're winning that right now. We're going to have to deal with our Republican colleagues now and see what they want to do. But I think we're going to win that one. But point number two is how do we expand Social Security benefits? Point number 3 is how do we extend the life of Social Security? And I think that has everything to do with lifting the cap, which is now at $118,000. But the bottom line of all of this is if you look at the folks who are on Social Security, we have many of them who are trying to get by on $13,000, $14,000 a year. We had a call from somebody on disability, same problem. And we've got to expand benefits for those folks. An interesting point to make in passing is that when we talk about income and wealth inequality, one of the impacts of the growing disparity between the very, very rich and everybody else is that it's had a huge impact on the solvency of Social Security. And in fact, we've lost about 19 or 20 years of solvency because of stagnant incomes and the fact that more and more people are above the $118,000 threshold. So, answer, yes, let's take a look at all aspects of Social Security, how we make it fairer.
We have about 45 seconds, Senator. Thoughts on raising the cap?
Absolutely. No, we have legislation that does that. But in terms of Social Security, though, what you're looking at is a political issue in the sense that if millions of people, and they are, I submitted a petition that came from the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. A petition was given to Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and myself. It had 2 million names on it. And when our Republican friends see the reality that millions of people are saying, you are not going to cut Social Security, you're going to raise benefits, we know what's going on. When they see that, they're going to back off. That's why people have got to be mobilized and pay attention to what's going on.
We'll be back with more of your calls, your questions for Senator Sanders right after this. It's our Brunch with Bernie Hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And it's our Brunch with Bernie Hour. Senator Sanders on the line with us. Lucas in Portland, Oregon. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, Senator Sanders. It's an honor to talk to both of you and Tom. I had a more of a point and a question. If you'd be willing to support a program that would put solar panels on our schools, and if you would spearhead something like that, because if you think about it, in the summertime, 3 months out of the year that the kids aren't at school, it's just basically creating a lot of power for the community and all this other thing.
Lucas, not only would I support that concept, I did support that concept. It is law and has resulted in solar panels going on to the roofs of schools all over Vermont, and I suspect other parts of the country. Along with Bob Menendez, we passed legislation a few years ago called the Energy Efficiency Block Grant Program, which put about $3 billion in energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And I can tell you, in Vermont, a number of schools now have solar panels. It's great for the educators to work with the kids, explaining solar energy, explaining energy efficiency, and obviously saves the schools money. I think it's a great idea. On top of that, we have introduced legislation for 10 million solar rooftops, not just for schools, but for homeowners as well. Good question. Thanks, Lucas.
Ray in McHenry, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, I just want to make a simple and quick suggestion I think will help in the debate about money and speech. I've talked to Tom about this before. I know what the Supreme Court has said, but I urge you to start publicly using the term purchased speech to make the distinction between true free speech and such things as political ads and commercials, even owning a media outlet. That type of speech is anything but free. And the vast majority of Americans will never be able to purchase the speech that millionaires and billionaires do. And using that term, I think, is a way to highlight that inequity. And I think that could also create the meme that such ads are commerce and therefore subject to regulation. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Great point. Ray, that is, I think, an excellent point. You know, Ray is talking about Citizens United Supreme Court decision. And it's not what Ray is saying, which I agree with. It's not a question of freedom of speech. Right? You want to talk? You want to get out in the street corner and talk? Everybody can do that. These guys are purchasing speech, spending hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. Most people don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to buy TV ads. Excellent point, Ray.
Kathy in Chicago, you're on the air with Senator Sanders. Thanks for listening to WCPT.
Hi. Thanks so much, Senator Sanders, for running. We really appreciate it. And it's an honor to talk to you. My kids are finally going to be impressed with something that I've done.
That's every parent's dilemma, Kathy. Don't worry about it.
I have a question about Iran, but first I want to kind of piggyback off what I think it was Tom in Minnesota said about the messaging. Those of us that are informed understand your issues and the label, but I have a lot of experience talking to people that are uninformed, and they've been so conditioned socialism is bad that I don't even think they will listen to what you're saying. So I'm just wondering if you could use the term populism, because definitely everything that you promote is very popular. Also, we need T-shirts, because if we could wear them this summer, it could stimulate conversation also. And I also think it would be kind of fun if you subtly referred to FDR by calling the billionaire class economic royalists instead of the billionaire class. And then I have a question about Iran. With the passage of that Iranian bill yesterday, I know you voted for it, as did everyone except Tom Cotton. And I find it a little disturbing. I'm hoping you can reassure me, but I don't see how anything good can come out of this about our Congress, our dysfunctional Congress, looking at this agreement after it's finalized. And I think that it has an absolutely astounding visual for the world that the rest of the world should wait while our, again, dysfunctional Congress discusses it.
A good point, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
But I voted for it, and I think that was the right vote. Here's what we were up against. As a result of Senator Cotton and other Republican efforts, it was clear to me, and I think many others, that what a number of Republicans wanted to do is literally sabotage the president's, I think, good efforts in trying to see that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon and do it in a way that doesn't take us into another war, which would be a horrendous situation. What this legislation does do is it says that after an agreement is reached, the Congress can vote to disapprove of it. And if it did between you and me, there would be, if the agreement was a good agreement, and I hope it will be, even if that majority voted to disapprove, the president could veto that. So this is, and we would be able to sustain that veto. So in terms of the real impact, I think the president now has the green light to go ahead. If it's a decent agreement, I don't think it will be disapproved and overturned. And that puts us in a heck of a lot of better position than where we were a few months ago.
Senator, we have a minute and a half left in the hour. You want to riff, or would you want to take a quick call?
Let's take one more.
Okay. Marty in Evergreen Park, Illinois. Very quick question, please.
Hi, I'm sure. Senator Sanders, thank you for taking my call and all you do. My comment is, many families are trapped in perpetual debt cycles due to the outrageous banking fees levied against consumer accounts, especially overdrawn fees. And do you support laws to lower the maximum fees that can be levied against consumer accounts?
Do I support laws that would do that? Oh, my God, Marty. We have introduced legislation years ago to end what is nothing less than usury. That's what you're talking about. So you're having Wall Street banks who are able to acquire money at virtually today very, very low interest rates, charging millions of people, subprime borrowers, interest rates of over 20%. And this is the rich getting much richer and poor people getting much poorer. It is nothing less than usury. This is an issue we have been involved in for a very long time. In fact, I just introduced this week legislation to break up, along with Congressman Brad Sherman of California, legislation to break up the major banks. And one of the points that I made in my statement is that when you have 6 financial institutions with assets equivalent to 60% of the GDP of America and are charging people these outrageous interest rates, that is the reason, one of the reasons to break them up. So I truly do agree with you on that.
Senator Sanders, thanks so much for being with us today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great talking.